and welcome back. Today's Tuesday and we are continuing our Exodus story. My name is Lou Bird and I'm with you for the whole of this week. Very excited to be working through Exodus. Today we are in Exodus 16 to 18. Really great passages this week. I love the book of Exodus. And today we're looking at the kind of next part of their journey, the Israelites, as they navigate away from Egypt and towards the promised land. And yesterday you would have read that they crossed the Red Sea and they will have seen the whole Egyptian army perish because of God kind of pushing those waters back together again, having led them through safely to the other side. And there are people that have seen God do some incredible things. The Israelites have seen God move. But you will have also noticed in yesterday's chapters that there are people that like to grumble. There are people who like to complain. And I know that when I read this, I don't always put myself as an Israelite, right? I'll just say that. I read it and I think, gosh, the Israelites were so grumpy. They were so ungrateful. They've just seen God do these incredible things. And yet here they are moaning and complaining. And they should be so grateful for what they've got. Because by this point, they're in Elim. And Elim is this place, what does it say? That they've got 12 springs and 70 palm trees. I mean, it just sounds like heaven. And from what they've known from being in Egypt and being in slavery, they must know that they've got it so good. But yet, they start to complain. And when I picture myself in this story, I try not to picture myself as an Israelite. But actually, I wonder whether I am a little bit. Whether actually, sometimes I see God do some amazing stuff. Sometimes I see God provide in miraculous ways. And yet maybe I'm also a little bit like the Israelites, where I'm a bit like, yeah, but God, all this other stuff is still left to do. Like, but what about all this, God? And I'm failing to really recognize what God is doing in all the other areas in my life. So this is what the Israelites are doing. They're starting this grumbling, even though God has already done so much. And even though God has made them incredible promises for their future. The Israelites are starting to grumble, and they're grumbling about the provision. They're grumbling about the fact that there might not be enough food, and how are we going to get the food? And so God makes this promise that he will provide to his people using manna, but he will only provide them with enough for each day. And he goes on to say, in this way, I will test them and see if they will follow my instructions. Now, true to what you probably would expect of the Israelites, and us too, potentially as well. They don't do that. They gather in as much food as they can, rather than listening to God's instruction that you can take enough for today, but not enough that will last you for tomorrow. They don't. They gather it all up and they try to hoard it. And obviously the next day they wake up and it's ruined. All the food that they've gathered overnight for the next day's provision is ruined. It's spoiled. But God in his faithfulness continues to provide daily food for them. Even though they failed God's test ultimately. And this kind of makes me think, and I guess my question to you today is, how easy do you find it to follow God's instruction if all you've got is his word? Because I think sometimes if you're like me, and I think I'm fairly standard in this, I'll follow God's instruction as long as I've tested it a little bit. As long as, if God says step out in faith in this way, I will, but only if I've, sorted myself out a little bit. If it's, if God says give money away, I'll be like, yeah, okay, but I'll do it on a month where I'm slightly more comfortable than this month or whatever. I'll try to fix things around it so that if God isn't true to his word, then I'm still kind of covered anyway. And I think I'm not alone in that. Maybe you're similar to that. I don't know. Certainly the Israelites were like that. And here they are being tested and asked to trust God, that even when God will ask you to do something crazy, only today's food can you gather. Tomorrow, you have to trust me again. And every day is a renewal of that trust. Okay, God, I trust you for today's provision. I'm not looking ahead to tomorrow. I'm not looking ahead to next month. I'm not checking. I'm not fixing anything around it. I'm literally just trusting on you. So can you trust God with what you need for today? Whether that's finances, whether that's grace, whether that's help, whether that's healing. Can you trust God completely and solely and only on his word, and not on your own ability to package it and soften it and make it easier to handle. That's my challenge to you. If you're struggling, I recommend thinking back over the times where you have seen God's faultless provision for you in your life, God's incredible grace for you in your life. You will have, I just know, you will have 1,000 stories, if not more, of God's incredible goodness being shown to you. So maybe just spend some time, ask God to remind you, because we forget, the Israelites forgot, and ask God to remind you of all those ways that he has proved himself faithful to you, so that you can trust him for what you need from today. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.